11th, 2024, and we are talking with Tony Greaves and Carol Greaves, our parents. Well, my parents. This is Lisa Greaves. And so, Dad, could you tell us a little bit about the Mexico trip, taking a horse to Mexico, something like that?
Sure. I've sold a lot of horses to Mexico, but the very first time, the man paid a deposit and arranged for me to meet him in Rome, Texas, or to meet somebody in Rome, Texas. And I went down there. He told me to go to this shopping center and that they would meet me there. And so I was afraid. I hadn't been there before and didn't know how long it would take. And before we had GPS and cell phones. So I got there probably 45 minutes early, and I went in and shopped a little bit and kept coming back out. And whenever I was out at the pickup, I had a little trailer with 3 horses in it. And this scruffy guy pulled up in a pickup in a trailer with a horse that was had a saddle on it. And he asked me what I was doing there, and I said, well, I've sold some miniature horses, and I'm meeting the guy to take into Mexico. And he said, well, I'm the whatever the guard is for the border, whatever, the border guard. He said, and this is an area where they can't cross animals into Mexico. I said, well, I'm not. I'm just meeting somebody. And he said, and besides that, this is a no man's zone. If you unload the horses in this shopping area, we can seize them because they're not to be on the ground here.
Thank God for him, this person.
And I said, well,
Tell me what to
what
do.
do I do? And he said, well, if you go down this road about 1.5 miles, there's a Pizza Hut, and behind the Pizza Hut is out of the area, and so you can try to do whatever you need. I said, well, thank you for letting me know. And so he left, and I waited and waited for the people, and he came back a second time and said, you're still here? And, he was just kind of gruff. Said, yeah, I met the guy. I was early. I was like 45 minutes early, so he's not supposed to be here for another 10 or 15 minutes. And he said, well, okay. And he left. And of course, I was getting a little antsy at this point.
Sure. You're going to get arrested.
And finally, a guy shows up and he tells me that he's there to pick up the horses from this other man. And I told him, I said, well, we're not supposed to unload here. He said, oh, well, yeah, that's all right. And while he was there, the ranger, whatever he was, came back. And they started talking in Spanish and just laughing and having a great time, probably in my experience.
Was he pulling your leg?
No, I don't think so. But
weird.
This stupid gringo doesn't know what he's doing here. But anyway, but he made sure that the guy understood that they couldn't cross here. And so when the guard left, then the guy was there with just an open pickup. He didn't have a trailer, and there are 3 horses.
Oh.
And he said, "Oh, don't worry about it." He says, "I'm going to get a camper drop, and I've already talked to the border guards. We're going to cross at a certain time. They're going to let us across. There's no problem." I said, "Well, he said if you go across, I have the paperwork for you to go across the border, but you don't have the paperwork to come back. So he said they could stop you on the bridge, and they would take the horses because they would have to stay in Mexico." And he said, "Oh, it's no problem. I've got it all arranged." And I said, and he said, "I'm going to cover the pickup so they won't even see the horses going across." And I told him, well, we got to go down to the Pizza Hut to unload them. And he said, "Don't worry about it." And they'd called several places to see if they had a camper cover, and couldn't find one. And so finally he said, "Well, you've been here a long time. It's time. We won't keep you anymore. We'll go down and unload them." So we went down, and I pulled behind the Pizza Hut down the road about a quarter, probably 150 yards. And I said, "Tell you what, let's back your pickup I'm going to open the trailer, and so we backed his pickup up where we could jump the horses into the pickup rather
So that they
than
never
they never touched the
on that.
ground. And we tied them. Oh, and the guy gave me, I think they owed $16,000, and he gave me a sack with $16,000.
Oh my
That
gosh.
was the part
That
was
was the part that they hadn't finished paying for. and I thought, oh great. And so I put it under the seat in the pickup.
Oh my gosh.
And I thought, they're going to stop me and think I've been a drug dealer.
Right, right, totally.
Anyway,
Oh, that's have to go the other way, really.
So they finally,
What?
we got the 3 horses in there, and they just tied them to, a pickup usually has holes.
Right.
And we tied them, and I felt so bad. These 3
Right.
registered miniature horses.
Why wouldn't they get the cover before they come?
And-
So
yeah,
bizarre.
right,
That's
for
sketchy.
sure. But anyway, and so then I left, and all the way home I was afraid somebody was going to stop me and search me and whatever.
Oh my gosh.
And I was going to lose my money, and I hoped that the horses were safe and they would get across. But the guy emailed me and or called me and said, oh, we got the horses and we really like them and all this stuff. And I said, well, if you won't buy more, we're not going back to Rome, you can bet.
Right.
And he did buy some more, but we went to Laredo where it was legal to go.
Oh, okay, good.
But that was
Yikes.
my first experience exporting to Mexico.
Mexico's a
Whoa.
hoot.
Oh, yikes.
But they said they were going to go across, he said they were going to go across about 3 a.m., that the guards were changing at 3 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And they had already paid off the guards to go across.
Do you have any idea what year this was, approximately?
Oh, no, it was in the late 90s, probably. It was after we were here. And it was
Oh,
early
okay.
there, so it would have been
Oh.
probably 95, 96, 97 in that
Okay.
area.
Okay, I was just wondering because I did a mission trip to Nuevo Laredo,
Yeah.
but that was earlier. That was the earlier
You know,
90s.
our church in Austin used to go down there, but they don't anymore.
Wow, thank you. That's I don't know if I've ever heard that story. That's wild. There was another one about Taco Bueno and something about
yes,
cash.
yes.
The common thread is cash in a bag.
Right. Except this one is in a briefcase.
Oh, okay, okay. A little more organized.
I was a supervisor for Taco Bueno. I worked for Taco Bueno for 13 years. And at one point I was a supervisor, and this guy had called and wanted a really good Appaloosa colt, and they were very rare at that time. And we finally made a deal for this colt for $50,000. And he said, well, I'll send somebody to pay you. I said, well, that's not necessary. You can just transfer it to the bank, or you can send me a check or whatever, and then send somebody to pick up the horse. No, I want to pay you. I'll send somebody. That's weird, but anyway. And so then we were, actually one of my stores was a new store, and that we were going to shoot a commercial for Taco Bueno. And I was supervising the store where the TV crew was going to come. It was before we were open. And so it was early in the morning. Actually, we closed the store all day, so we were shooting all day. And so I think it was in Addison, and I was involved with the shoot and everything. And some of our employees were in the thing and everything. And somebody came to me and tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Mr. Graves, there's a man here to see you." And I said, "Oh well, I forgot that guy was going to meet me." And so I went outside, and this said, "Hi, I'm from such and such, and I have the payment for the horse." He asked me to come out, and so I went out to his pickup or his car, and he had a briefcase, and he opened it up and said, "You can count it." I said, "Well, that's fine. I believe you." And he said, "Well, where do you want it?" And I said, "Well, I don't think I'm going to take it to the store. I'll let me go get a bag." And so I got a bag out of the store, and we shuffled it out of his briefcase into a bag, and it was $50,000 is a pretty good. It was hundreds, so it wasn't a
Holy
huge
moly.
amount. But
Yeah.
so then I took it and put it in I had a Aerostar minivan that was a company car, and I put it under the seat there, and I actually locked the car. I don't usually,
Well, thank goodness.
You
but
think?
just in case I
Oh
did.
my gosh.
And so then he went on his way, and I went back in to finish shooting the commercial.
Whoa. I can't, that would be nerve wracking to have that much money locked
The
in a
biggest
car.
payment you ever got for a horse ride.
I've sold 3 for that, 3 different times.
That is
The
bizarre.
very first one that I sold for that was, do you want me to go on more?
Sure, sure.
Well, we were living in Denton, and I had raised, really we just started having Appaloosas, because that was a very rare miniature. And I got this letter, this was before email and stuff, and it had very fancy stationery. It had gold embossed and all, and it didn't really say who it was, but they were interested in a miniature horse and wanted an Appaloosa specifically. So I had one that was for sale, and so I videoed, that was when it was VHS tapes, videoed the one that I had for sale, but in the background was another one that I had hoped to keep. And so then I mailed the thing off, and it went to a lady's name, but she said I'm not the buyer, I'm sort of the agent for the buyer. And so I got a telephone call and said that her client really wasn't interested in the one that I wanted to sell, but that he would like to know if I would sell the one in the background. And I said, well, I really plan on keeping him. He said, well, name your price. What would you take for him? And I thought, well, I'll scare him off. I said, $50,000. And she said, well, let me get back with you. So a couple of days later, she called again and said he wants it. And so when I got that stationery, Carol said, this person has money.
This is fancy.
And it's because
It's
it's,
you in the station.
yeah.
And the name.
Well, the name wasn't there, but I found out later
Top
that
secret.
it was Palo Gucci of the Gucci handbag family, and so the horse went to him. When it was weaned, and
We were telling this to somebody important.
the horse ended up going to it went to England, and then it ended up in England, and I went to Belgium later years, quite a few years later, and met a lady who ended up with the horse after Gucci was murdered.
Palo Gucci was.
Palo Gucci,
Oh,
I
my.
remember seeing that in the paper, saying, don't I look at this.
the person
Thanks, gosh.
who contacted me was his trainer, who was also his mistress,
Oh,
who also murdered him, or
What?
had him murdered or something.
what?
That's the rumor that we've heard. But anyway, that was one
That's
of
an interesting
one of my
story.
celebrities.
You want to tell anything about the Vanderpump buyer?
Oh, well, yeah, that was interesting. This wasn't but about,
More
well,
recent.
it was 9 years ago, because it was, I got a call from a girl. We were actually at a horse show in Katy, Texas that weekend, and I got a telephone call from a lady in Dripping Springs, or in somewhere down that way, no, Wimberley. And she was a friend of somebody who was looking for some really nice little miniature for this lady's husband's birthday. And I said, well, I'm out of town right now, but I'd be happy to show them to you whenever I get back. And she said, well, we're on a time frame. We really need to look at it. Could I possibly come see it while you're gone? And I said, well, I can contact Armando and arrange it. And so I called Armando and said, this lady's insisting to see, and I told him a couple of horses to look at. And so the next day, he called and said, well, she's not really interested in what we have for sale, but here's the two that she really does like. And he told me what they were, and I thought, well, fine. That was back when I really needed to sell horses to eat. And so she picked out one that we had shown, and let's see. I looked up her name yesterday, and I can't remember it, but it was a boogie daughter. and a little filly that hadn't been weaned yet, but she was old enough that she could wean. And she wanted that. And so the lady got on the phone with me, and we arranged for payment and all. And I said, well, who's this going to? She said, oh, I really can't tell you who it's going to right now, because it's probably going to be televised whenever it gets there. And as soon as that's done, then I will tell you that.
Under an NDR.
Okay? As long as
Or
you're
NDA,
paying
NDA.
for it. And so then Armando called me a little bit later that day and said they want us to meet. They want me to clip the baby and try to get her halter broke. She was just 4 months old. And he said they want us to meet them at the San Marcos airport in the morning at 9 o'clock. And I thought, well, that's weird. I said, and so I called the lady and said, well, to go into California, you have to have health papers and Coggins. And she said, well, it's a private plane, and so we're fine. We're not worried about that. And I said, okay. So I got home from the show that
It's illegal,
night.
but okay.
I got home that night. We got home, and I talked to Armando, and he said they're really nice people, and they had bought 2 nice horses, and so we took them to the airport the next morning, and they had told us just to drive out onto the tarmac or whatever, and to look for a plane that had this number. And so we got there, and I called again, and she said, well, I'm about 15 minutes away, but my husband and my son, who's the pilot, are there, and they'll meet you. And so we got there, and a plane arrived while we got the horses out of the trailer, and all these people came over to take pictures of the horse and stuff. And then I have a picture of Armando and Gabriel. They came with the horses, and then they loaded them in the plane and flew to Hollywood. And sure enough, it was on TV. I mean, later on they taped it, and
The show
it
is
was-
called Vanderpump Rules.
no, it was
Was it?
on
I forget.
Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
Ah,
And Lisa Vanderpump was buying a horse for her husband's 70th birthday, which happened to be Carol's exact same birthday. And so the reason they were in a hurry for it is that Monday after that show was Carol's birthday, and I forgot something. Todd is his name. They have different names, but and her friend had bought both horses, and was going to let her pick whichever one she wanted to buy for her husband, and her friend was going to keep the other one, but Lisa Vanderpump couldn't decide which one she wanted, so she bought them both. And then they appeared on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills several times during the next 2 years, and we got some nice. I set it to tape, and I would fast forward, and when the horse was on, I would tape it. So I have, I think, all of their appearances.
how fun.
So that was Vanderpump Rules.
Ah, that's so fun.
I think they even would have appeared on that, but I didn't tape that one to see.
Huh. I guess I only saw the very first one.
Yeah, when they arrived.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Huh, I'd like to see the others. That's really fun.
Another fun one that one time we had a lady call and said she was looking for a miniature or 2 for a friend of theirs, and could she come out and look at them? So she came out, and I really liked her, and we went through all the horses, and she picked out about 5 or 6 that she liked, and she said, my friend is very busy. Could you have these up for her? And it was predicted to have rain the day they were going to come, and she said, we don't want her to be in the rain, so if we could have it where we could look at them. And I said, sure, that's not a problem. We usually try to bring the horses up that people are specifically in, but I ask people to pick out off the website what they want to look at rather than taking them and looking at 160 horses.
Sure, yeah.
And so that morning, they were going to be there about 9 o'clock, about 11 o'clock. And about 9 o'clock in the morning, I was in my office, and I saw this van coming up, kind of driving slow, and came up here to the top. And I was getting ready to go outside and see what they wanted. And they turned around and drove off. And then later on, two cars came at the appointment time, and it was the lady who had come, and a little girl got out of the car with her, and the other car pulled up, and a nice young lady got out there, and she said, "I'm Susan Dell," and I thought, "Oh, hi, nice to meet you." We're Susan Dell of the Dell Computers, and it turned out that the van who had come earlier was their security.
Oh my
To make
gosh,
sure it was
scouting
safe
it out.
for them to come here.
What?
And the stupidest thing, she really liked the horses, and turned out the woman who came out was her trainer, and they apparently had a stable with horses that their kids did, and the little girl who was with her was, I think Victoria was their daughter's name. Now she was probably 9 years old, and she really liked the horses. They really liked 4, and they couldn't decide which 2 they wanted, and she said, "Well, I really like these 2, but not those in." And so, stupid me, talking to Susan Dell, I said, "Well, if you buy all 4, I'll take off $1,500.
Like they need a deal. They probably want you to charge more.
I've kicked myself in the butt for that ever since, because $5 would have made a difference to me, but $1,500 really didn't make any difference to her. And it turns out that they didn't want me to use their name, but I think the name of the ranch that they set up was like 4D for the Fordells. And they had bought, there was a subdivision outside of Austin that somebody was doing a development, and they bought the whole place, and that became I think it was 4D Farms. Anyway.
Giving the Dills a break, a price break. Little charity there. That is so funny.
Well, I sold 2 just this year to one of Sam Walton's granddaughters
Oh, really?
for his great-granddaughter.
Oh, that's cool.
But it was boring. They just looked at my website and bought what they wanted.
Oh.
And said,
Not much of a story.
Send somebody to come and pick them up. Anyway.
Wow. Thank you. I'm glad we got some bonus content there. Wasn't sure how much.
A little chatty story.
Don't be sorry. I love
Can't
it.
stop.